today I saw a memory. Just wanted to add this into the podcast today. So I saw a memory pop through from 13 years ago, and it really brought me back to a really cool time in my life. So it was 13 years ago. Myself and Graham Holmberg had taken over the old Rogue affiliate, which had been an affiliate for maybe 2.5 years before that. And it was really neat. Like Doc, who just recently moved and took a job at Yale, but he had been here he was one of the members who had been there actually since they started there. So he was a member here for, I think, 15 years. So he preceded me by 2 years. Sarah Dewberry, who's still a member, was in that picture. A guy, Tyler Sullivan, who owns an affiliate, Badger CrossFit in Wisconsin. He has for the last 11 or 12 years. And Mike Tarnapol, and then Graham and his wife. So it was a cool photo and brought back a lot of memories to a time that this whole thing was really getting off the ground. And really Doc was the only member kind of then. Sarah and Mike were, but they were kind of personal training clients of mine that followed me over from New Albany. And I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it just brings back nostalgia and memories because we're in this new place. We have a podcast studio in the gym. I was just out, we had a big, probably 25 person class rocking out at 8:30 a.m., like a mid-morning class. That's not a real normal thing, I don't think, in an affiliate. And then in our barbell side in our open gym, there's 10 people buzzing around doing their own thing, private training. I was training you and Lexi.
How many members did the gym have when you took it over?
14 paying.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had 14 members paying. And in this post, I shared a post on Facebook on my personal page, and Graham actually reshared it, I think. And it brought back memories of, so when we took over this gym, so we only ran 2 classes. So a noon and a 5:30 p.m. class. We did elements at 11 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. And there was a group element. So we did that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We eventually moved that to Thursday because every Friday night, you'd have to stick around for elements. And it ended up moving all the way up to 7:30. So you'd be getting out of the gym on a Friday night at 9. But anyways, it just brought back all this nostalgia. It was really cool about the things we used to do and how different the whole industry was then. So it was a really fun time. As much as it was the weather starts to get a little depressing right around this time of year. It gets dark super early. It's cold when you wake up, and you're still adjusting to that. But I remember being so energized, getting up in the morning, rushing to the gym. Graham and I would literally just play in the gym and figure out CrossFit. So any move, whether it was a handstand walk or rope climb footholds or different ways of doing muscle ups, lots of Olympic weightlifting, we were just playing around, figuring out CrossFit. We had already done it for a couple of years, but the techniques and the teaching, there weren't affiliates really. So, we were self-taught for the most part outside of, weekend seminars. But we were just figuring this stuff out all day. And it was such a fun time. It's hard to even describe, just playing and living in the gym all day. And so when we ran classes, we'd have a class, say, of 4 or 5 people. And you can just picture this. It was maybe a 1,500 square foot room. But Graham and I would team teach it. So it would be 2 of us in that class. So, it was you get a 1-to-3 ratio in class. It was pretty cool. We got really close with those members then. So we'd either team teach it, or if it was a really small class, sometimes we'd have 2 people. One of us would definitely work out in that class intentionally to create a little environment and intensity and just make it fun. So we would kind of alternate after a time, one would teach, one would work out. And we did that for a while. And then in between that, we were trying to figure out how to drum up business and create a buzz. So back then, what I do, we're doing things like this. We're creating a podcast. Mike's right here hanging out with us all day, taking photos, creating content for us full time. That wasn't like a thing back then. And what we did do is we bought a camcorder from Kmart, so we didn't have to use Graham's personal camcorder. So we went to Kmart and bought one, and we took stills off of like a video. So you could like click it for a picture. You can still find these photos on the old, I think it's like Rogue Fitness CrossFit Gahanna Facebook page. So they're not real high quality pictures. We'd take pictures every day of every class, and then we'd shoot videos. And at the end of the month, we'd create a highlight video of the whole month. And these highlight videos were cool. They get people hyped up, and we'd put those onto Facebook. And that's before Facebook, actually, you could host video. You couldn't upload a video, so it was a shared YouTube link. And so we did that every month, and that is actually what got us. I know a good chunk of the clients were friends of mine from high school, so I would post these videos. And in that first 2 months, I mean, there was a good 15 to 20 of them that joined the gym, and that right there is what got us over the hump and surviving in a lot of ways. That chunk of friends of mine from high school that came in and worked out with us. Shout out to all you guys if anyone still listens to this, but none of them are at the gym anymore for the most part. But they all came in, supported us, and they had saw those videos, and I started to see the power of, creating content. I didn't know anything about it, but we were doing that consistently. And what was cool is I did get to see that influence over time grow with other gyms, because we were doing that. We were updating our website, updating a blog every day. And then I started to see other CrossFit gyms pop up and then follow suit. So we started making videos, like it was a couple months later than they did. And it's cool to see, like, you personally have like an influence and things like that. We would do things like put ads in Craigslist we would say it was like a boot camp, and we're just trying to get people to come into the gym. So things that are really antiquated now, that it was such a different time. A lot of gyms didn't even have websites at all. Like, there was no web presence. The gym we had worked at previously, we ran newspaper ads, and we put flyers on cars. And we did have a website, and then I remember making a MySpace page for the gym. So that's bringing it back a little bit. The Rogue one we didn't. I was close to, but by the time we took it over, MySpace was starting to quickly lose traction. I remember that, and it was like, okay, we don't probably need to do this. I'm only checking this like once a month now, and then soon after that, it was dead. But it's just really cool to like remember that start and what that time period launched, not just for me, but for Graham. It was a super exciting time. We were so fired up about training. He ended up winning the games, 9 months after that. Us being in the gym all day, I think, really allowed him to fully like express himself, like, and just live the lifestyle. And we were just so into it. And I just remember being so excited about that opportunity. Shout out to Bill and Katie Henninger for providing that for me. And we were able to execute on it and get some momentum. And you came in, I don't know, what, about 2 years later?
Yeah.
So you got to see it still in the very early stages.
There was a good energy there, I felt like. I mean, the classes weren't huge, but I loved it.
They were pretty... They were decent
like
size.
15 to 20 people in a class.
There.
Yeah. And I think I would always do either the 6 a.m. or the noon class.
Yep.
It was a lot of, at 6 a.m., not quite as many people, but probably around 10.
So we only ran four?
I think there was a 6.
4 or 5 classes then a day.
You would do a 9:30.
Just one on the weekends. Yeah. It was still, I mean, our schedule was a third of what it is now, like CrossFit wise.
How many classes do we run a day now?
10. And then but the big one where you'll really see the difference is like, so it's 10 instead of maybe 4 or 5, but the weekends, it's like 4 on Saturday, 6 on Saturday, 4 on Sunday.
Yeah. How many members do we have now around about?
I have to check, but it's mid 600s probably, somewhere in that range.
14 to mid 600s.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty cool to see the evolution of it. And we'll get to celebrate that in the Christmas party next Friday, which is always like, that's where I get real nostalgic and think back on all the people that have been here and that have helped like grow this thing and that have believed in us and supported us, whether it was employees and staff and then longtime members and people who, we were able to provide a place that impacted them. And I don't know, just seeing that memory pop up, like it made me feel really good on a day. Like, I think what we're going to get into discussing, like on a day when I like, it took me, I'm not the biggest morning person, but it took me a minute to get out of bed. Like I was just like sniffling and not feeling the best. Our daughters had like a little upper respiratory thing and, just something that's kind of been lingering for a couple weeks almost or brewing,
Yeah.
and it, got us to kind of chatting about what I was going to do for a workout today and like what you were going to do and plans and stuff. And just like, okay, maybe we should talk about, cause it's a very relevant topic right now, especially there's so many people sick. I think compared to last week, and this isn't the holiday week yet. You guys end up listening to this next week. The week before I had in my noon class, just an example, I had 20 in my classes across the board. So that's a good sized normal noon class that I have, right around 20 people, 15 to 20. And then this week it was right around 5 less every class. Yeah. And I think I would attribute that to, just stuff going around,
And like almost every single one of my clients they have something now or had it last week. So,
yeah.
Just kind of how to navigate, working out and if you're not feeling great. And then also just like, tips that we can give you to when you're in that phase where we're kind of at right now. We're not like sick. How do you take care of yourself to prevent?
It's not like an acute illness.
Yeah, that full on illness. And I think, what I see most is people just try to keep pushing through and then it hits them. They don't make adjustments in their day and then it hits them like full on and then they're down for the count where, I think there's a lot you can do in those beginning stages when your body is tired, is fatigued. You can kind of feel like it's fighting something to just make quick adjustments immediately, small adjustments where, yesterday I came in, I still try to move a little, but I'm like, if I can go home and just lay down for 1 hour here, I can probably like keep all my appointments and just do phone calls and be okay. And I feel significantly better today, but not amazing. So I guess, first and foremost, just making that quick adjustment in your schedule, offloading a little bit, but to keep moving like physically, keep moving that energy around, you don't want to just, if you're not feeling 100% lay in bed all day, because that really doesn't help you fight it. So there's always been a big debate. Hey, if you're a little sick, do I work out or do I not work out? And I remember finding this great study, and I can't remember a lot of the specifics of what date or how many people participated, but it was with athletes, and they had varying levels of illness. But basically, the conclusion of the study is if you do not have a temperature, it's always beneficial to move your body, but just to make adjustments in the intensity and the load. So I always tell clients.
So if you have a fever, don't
work out. Yes.
Do not work out. If you don't have a temperature,
it's beneficial to move.
Beneficial to move. Okay.
Yes, but you do want to adjust that workout. So you wouldn't want to come in tomorrow on a benchmark day if you feel kind of like we do today and attack that workout. You want to, I mean, might be able to still do it, but scale it, move through at 70% intensity.
Yep.
But then also, something else to think about is every time you weight train, basically you are breaking down your muscle. You're creating little tears, and you need to send white blood cells to your muscle to help repair that muscle. So you really don't want to weight train heavily when you're fighting something, because your body has to sort of choose between fighting off whatever illness and then repairing your muscle. So even in the least, you really don't get the full benefits from that weight training workout, or you get sick. So your body kind of has to pick and choose. So I always say, break a light sweat, get your body moving, get the fluids moving.
Flowing,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Not something that's going to create like a lot of muscle damage.
Yes. Yeah. And then another thing that is very common with a lot of my clients, and I did not feel like eating yesterday, but every 2.5 to 3 hours, I made myself put something in my body. And again, you're just flushing. You're just kind of flushing all that out, where I try to keep up with like water intake. But then
that's the hard thing with me when I don't feel well for one reason or another. My thirst is like off. Like I have to like force fluids down.
Yeah.
I don't want to drink a ton of water. Maybe if like you have a sore throat or something, you just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So it's like something you have to almost like set an alarm for.
Yeah.
Or every 15 minutes, like take a drink, or I don't know.
Or even have having a water bottle like that and saying, okay, before I leave work today, I need to get through 3 of these. And guidelines for water intake. I always say a gallon for women and close to 1.5 gallons for men, if you can, which is a lot. That's a lot. So
with that, I don't think I've ever, I used to have like a gallon jug I would try and drink. I've never finished one.
You don't drink much fluids.
I would try. I just I felt like I physically couldn't do it. Are like other fluids from other things counted in that?
Yes, no, that's a good, not coffee. But so that can be like sparkling water. I think you have some branched chains in there or something. I mean, basically anything that doesn't have caffeine can go towards that. People don't really ask me about milk a lot, but any sort of liquid, right? It's going to help with that. But yeah, it gets boring to drink water. So
I've just never been able to put like a gallon. Like some people like do it very easily.
Yeah.
Like I've always struggled to. I don't drink out of those jugs or anything anymore. But yeah.
And half my clients really struggle. Half of them are okay. I think a lot of it, I like my stomach to be full, so I have an easier time like keeping water in it, where it's just almost like a personal preference or what makes you feel more comfortable.
I don't like that feeling actually, especially like around training. Like I'm like,
it's funny.
I like to feel really empty.
I like to go into a class, like I almost like would rather feel a little full, because in my mind I have like energy reserves that are going to pop out like minute 16 of a 20-minute AMRAP that I'm going to be able to dip into. But it's so much of this is, just kind of understanding how you're naturally wired and not like totally fighting that every step of the way, but trying to like, okay, I like to be full all the time, recognize that means I need to just be aware that I don't need to walk around full, because then that creates issues with like overeating and that sort of thing.
I think even as we keep diving into this, one thing I'd like to say, because I don't want people getting sick at the gym. This is the last place I want people getting sick at the gym. If you don't feel good, like you have an acute illness, you're actively coughing, like you're hacking around, like we don't come in, like, and if you are going to move, like bundle up, take a walk, sit on a bike or something in your house. Like don't come in here like, German up equipment and stuff. Like, and I won't,
can become that.
Yeah. And I'm not going to do that to you guys either. Like, I just want to like that's what scares people from coming to the gyms in the wintertime. And what I do love about this facility is more so than anyone we've ever had before. It's way cleaner. People have done a good job since COVID, like after every workout, we're spraying equipment down, cleaning it off, like the athlete's corner and barbell, like every hour they're walking through, cleaning stuff up, spraying it off, doing things like that. So before we like just keep like, hey, you're gonna come in, you're sick, you're working out, like, before we keep diving into that, I just want to let everyone know, like, you're sick and you're like, you wake up, you're like, man, I'm not feeling good, and it's the first day you're feeling like don't come into the gym. Like, move some energy around, maybe outside, and then like once you kind of settle into that and you're not contagious, you can come into the gym, start to move that energy out, and like you said, it's like a lot of times you don't feel better until you do move and find that, like, if you just lay around, like, you can do that when you have zero viral illnesses or anything. If you lay around for 5 straight days and you wake up on that 6th day, you don't feel good. Like, you don't feel like you want to go work out, and you don't feel like, oh man, I want to attack the day. If you lay on your ass and watch TV for 5 straight days and eat crackers and soup, completely healthy, you're going to wake up and you're not going to feel great. So,
yeah. And also just another little thing you guys can do. I did this a lot when I had COVID, is on YouTube, they have, there's channels like Yoga Doze, I think is one that I subscribe to. So I'll pull that up if I feel real crappy and don't want to come in. Or when I had COVID, I did that a lot. And just run through like a yoga class, which felt really, really nice.
Stretching feels really good when you're not feeling well. Yeah. I've always, that was like the one thing I would always do, even, pre-CrossFit. I would, I like to work out and stuff. And if I felt sick, I would always just stretch for like 30 minutes, like a nice stretch. Still, you're just still moving some energy, moving things around. And you're getting out of like a seated or a lying position, and you're just moving your body. It feels really good. And then you, like, when you're done, you feel 20% better,
And then just something else real simple. Maddie and Mandy from Affiliate has told me this a lot, like, because I'll tend to swell at different times, but you can do a lymphatic massage in different areas, real simple, just kind of right here in your hips, right here in your neck, right here on your collarbones, and kind of run through that for a few minutes just to get that lymph moving. And that really, really helps a lot too. And then kind of, parlaying on last week in supplements. I don't think I got a chance to say what I take, but I'll do that now. All I take is a Smarty Pants. I still take prenatal vitamins just for nails and hair, and I really felt like that made a big difference. But the Smarty Pants are gummies. They taste really good. It's a higher quality gummy, but that's the way I never forget to take my supplements. But I do that every day. And then in the winter, around this time, I start to take vitamin C and vitamin D. I need to get back my vitamin D every day. Just to help with my immune system. And that's something that I would recommend everyone.
Yeah.
We're almost all deficient in vitamin D. So that's something that you can take. And the vitamin C, high doses of that, especially the powdered vitamin C, is really great for kicking illnesses. And especially if you have to throw it in a little drink, it just kind of forces more fluids. But those really help. So, we just kind of wanted to come out with some tangible things that you could do to help fight it in that beginning stage. And I think, again, the biggest adjustment would be in your day, not having a 12-hour day, like really, but maybe not like do nothing, but offload some of the volume in your day where you can. And then
it's not a good time to burn the midnight oil, like working.
Right.
So that mental energy, you'll notice you're probably foggy and things like that. Like, you're going to get over the illness a lot slower if you're sitting in front of a computer jamming on that for 10 hours a day when you're not feeling well.
Yes. And for all
a lot of people are working at home now, so it's like there is no, and that's something that's probably changed a lot. Like, we don't think about that too much. Running our own businesses, but a lot of people now shifted to working at home. Like, I would assume like a sick day is like they don't almost have them unless they're just completely like hospitalized sick. Like it's just like, okay, you know, I guess put on clothes that you can jam in front of a computer in your home office, unless you're doing Zoom calls, you got to throw maybe something decent on to look like you're pretending like you're at work or I don't know. It just,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
imagine now people never get that sick day or that downtime that they had before. And it's good for companies and stuff, but it can be tough, when
For
you
your
just,
health.
you never get that downtime. So, take care of yourselves, try and get, the minimum amount of work done. I do it, like part of my job that people don't see, I think, is I do a lot of programming. So, you guys see the workouts at the gym. I'm writing a lot of that content. So all levels, all the level 2 stuff, the Olympic weightlifting programs. And then I have 8 or 9 individual design clients. So that's a good amount of work as well. So I'm writing, another, what's that, 5 times, another 40 workouts a week with that. And they're all different. So I'm spending quite a bit of time on that programming, and that's got to get done. Like, one way or another. It's not like, I'm sick, we'll figure it out.
So when we go on trips, you work ahead 2 weeks.
So I'm just letting people know, like, I understand, like, with work and stuff, you guys are going to have to get certain amount done, but there's also a minimum that you can get done.
Yeah.
And that would be the time to get that minimum amount. Like I would get those workouts in. I'm not going to work ahead. I'm going to maybe let an email or something that's due. I have bills and taxes and millions of things that are popping up. Just managing a business of this size and scope. There's something on the horizon that's due all the time. I might punt that a little bit. So it's the time to do that and then start to queue that stuff up. And what I do is I make a list. So I start to list things off like, all right, I'm not doing this, but I'm writing this list down. And as soon as I'm rocking and rolling again, like we're crossing this stuff off. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great strategy. Maybe you guys could implement if you're working from home and doing that. And the one other thing I wanted to get into, because this is when it comes to this, is if you've been acutely sick and you've been out for even a few days, or if you've been out for a week or 2 weeks, be extremely cautious and careful when you've come back. I've taken some of my worst injuries that I've ever had in sports or in training, coming off of illnesses. I dislocated a shoulder that, this was 14 years ago, and it was coming off of I had taken about a week off, and I was like jumping up and swinging around on a pull-up bar, doing like bar muscle ups and stuff like that. And I just got into a really deep kip and came into it. My shoulder just slid right out of socket, but I just hadn't, like, my muscles were lax and my joints I just hadn't been grinding on weight, and my body wasn't ready for that. And,
kind of have to like look at like what you've been doing the last week, and if it's laying in bed, then there you need to meet your like do increments like 25% more activity.
Yeah.
So the first couple workouts you might do might be on your own. Yeah.
Like deadlifting, things like that, like Olympic lifts, like be very careful and cautious coming back, because that is the last thing you want to do after you miss 2 weeks is miss 2 months for an injury. That's the kind of stuff that people do that, and then I don't see them for a year, where it's just like, well, I got sick and then I got hurt and then I just kind of fell out of the habit. And it's like, you've got to be careful and incrementally and
I hear that story a lot when people come to me, or if, they put on 30 pounds, usually it's some sort of events like that.
It's like a chain. It's if you have one and then another one, because you're like, oh man, I'm just going to get back. This is going to suck. And then you just kind of get the wind knocked out of you. It's like, you get knocked down in a fight, and then like you just barely get up from that and someone just finishes you off. It's like, that's what it feels like when you take an injury after an illness.
No one knows what that feels like except for you.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, that's where
And all the fights I've gotten into, it's horrible. Also, like I kind of going back to like the front end of that before you get really sick. And then I want to talk to all the parents out there because I know this is like a stressful time of year. There's so much more that we do that doesn't absolutely need to be done. And I fall victim to this too, where I'm like, oh, but we have to go see the zoo lights before Christmas. And then we have to do the drive-through lights. And then we've got to do and I don't think our kids really give a shit. Like when I ask them, they're like, oh, well, maybe we could do this or that. And so really just kind of picking and choosing what's important to you and really just kind of asking your children, like, what do you guys really care about? Because I think, I mean, I know that there's a lot of pressure out there and I've really tried this year, like, okay, instead of just like planning all these things, I'm actually going to ask my children, what do you care about? And focus on that and let everything else go. Because if they don't care, then I'm not going to really stress myself out. Like even when it comes down to like a special meal on Christmas where in my mind, I'm like, well, maybe I'll make another turkey and we'll do this. And just really stressful, like all day, like baking or cooking. And then we're talking about it and that, you know, the kids are like, we want pizza. I'm like, awesome. We have a little pizza oven. We'll just throw some pizza in there and get ready-made crust and you know, that and bake Christmas cookies. And that's going to be a ton of fun for them. So really just understanding like what you can offload socially too. And if it's not fun for you, I mean, there's certain obligations we have with family and with work and, but a lot of the things that we put pressure on ourselves to do or to this extreme is just, they're not necessary. And those are the things that wear us down, especially when we don't want to do it. Because there's something that really happens mentally when you're like dragging yourself to a stressful event and then you're not enjoying it, then, you know, that just really does, it's not necessary. That takes a toll on your body as well. So offloading a lot of that social, and that's what I'm talking a lot, you know, with my clients about and trying to manage. Like this is a big social week for us. We have 3 different dinners, you know, and that's probably part of why we're like a little worn down and we want to do all of them, but we just need to be very careful. So like, you know, we're already planning. We really want to see our friends tonight. Like, okay, if we go, we're going to have an early night and then, you know, see how we feel tomorrow and address that day as it comes. And then we don't have anything to the Christmas party next Friday. So we can have almost a week to kind of decompress and relax and just always looking at that, always looking ahead. And you'll keep hearing me come back to the schedule because I feel like that's where people, initially kind of don't spend enough time in thought and planning. So always looking not only at the week ahead, but the month ahead in how to not overload yourself. And then on a daily basis, sleep, rest, downtime. So always trying to find that, any little blocks. And even if you're at an office and you're working, you know, a lot of times you have a lot more flexibility than you realize. Not everyone, but you do, where you can shut the door and say, okay, for 20 minutes, I'm shutting down in this afternoon time where I feel like total crap. And I want to just grab for like sugar or more caffeine, which I don't need at 2:30 or 3 p.m. I'm going to meditate for 15 minutes and do that. And you'd be surprised. You'll come back, you'll be more focused and get more work done. And that's probably going to go into like a future podcast where we talk more about like how we've tweaked our work-life balance. But, you know, even on a wellness, from a wellness front in the beginning, again, where you're feeling run down, a lot of why we get run down is just overloading ourselves, especially this time of year, because we've got all the holiday stuff and just over planning, overdoing it. Where when we were children, I went to see Santa once. We didn't do all this lights and this event and that event. I mean, we celebrated Christmas, but my parents didn't have 15. I grew up in the country, but we didn't have all these parties to go to and all these things to do, which is fun now. But
well, we're in the middle of the city, and then just this, I think this time and this kind of era, people overload and they think that they need to do this and that. I really see it with, especially with parents with kids' schedules now. I remember growing up, I played sports. a lot of rec level sports, and now it's a lot of travel sports and activities, and people see that that's like the thing to do. And I think people are so much busier now with things like that, whether it's activities or things that they feel like they need to, like every day you have to be scrambling to the next thing.
Or you're not doing enough for your children.
Yeah. And it's like, those movie nights are just like coming home and having like that free playtime with kids in the neighborhood or parents to just like get your house settled in and not like, run everyone around right up until bath time and then just pass out,
Yeah. And I really think like some of the favorite things that our kids like to do, I mean, they love when we play games with them,
Yeah.
whether we have a couple bingo games or like Candyland or just simple things that, I kind of grew up doing. And you get I haven't played a board game in I don't know how long. And you have some resistance to that, but that's so much more engaging than sitting in front of the TV or taking your kids to sporting events. And we like to do that. But what I've really started to try to do, instead of just signing Oscar, especially because he's almost 7, instead of just signing him up for everything, I ask him, do you want to do this?
Sure.
Because I was going to sign him up for the swim team and practices were on Sunday. And I asked him and it was cute. He was like, well, sometimes on Sundays, I just like to have some free time. My friends will ask me to play, and sometimes I'm just tired. I'm like, buddy, I get it. I totally understand. So I'm not going to force that. And that's going to be a whole battle because every Sunday he's probably not going to want to do it. I'm going to drag him there. And, so just kind of looking, I guess what we're trying to say is almost like intuitively with your family, feel what feels natural, what feels right, and not forcing anything. Just like we're not forcing things with our body. When you're run down, you're not forcing a super hard workout because if you're not sick, you don't want to create that from exhaustion.
Yep. I think that's a good place to wrap this up. So yeah, just watch your energy around this time. This is a time where people tend to, the holidays, people are gathering, you have more things on your schedule like that. Be careful with your energy. Keep yourself in a rhythm so you can keep training. This is the month that is the hardest month to keep it together. It really is. And if you can make it through this month in decent shape, training and being, regular in here, it's going to set you up for the rest of the year in a really good way. Yeah, I think that's a good spot to end.
Thanks.
Check you out next time. See you.